Is RenderCube making Medieval Dynasty 2? So I'm kind of mad that I didn't notice this earlier, and I haven't really seen anybody talk about it. But maybe like 6 months ago, the CEO of RenderCube, aka the developers of Medieval Dynasty, had a little like investment meeting where they answered questions and shared like insights about future plans and the directions they would like to go to as a company in the next 3 to 4 years. And this was like a video that was posted on their YouTube channel. So if you want to go to it, I'll link it in the description. The problem is the video's in Polish, so I had to get it transcribed. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about today may have been lost in translation, but there are a couple things that really stood out in this video, which was the fact that they're working on multiple DLCs and starting a pre-production on a brand new game expected to take a couple years to develop. And this is what got me excited. Like, what type of game are they making? Is it Medieval Dynasty? Is it Medieval Dynasty adjacent? Or is it a new IP entirely? Luckily, this was one of the questions asked in the investors call, as well as what future holds for Medieval Dynasty in the coming years. Now, like I said, this was all in Polish, and a lot of it was just business and investor jumbo. So I'm gonna skip a lot of that, but we're gonna go over all the interesting bits. That mostly being the DLCs and the next game, which could or could possibly not be Medieval Dynasty 2. So first off, let's talk about DLCs. We know DLCs are coming. Recently, they announced the Echoes of Nature DLC, which is the decoration update that adds a bunch of new objects like trees, bushes, and stone formations. And of course, we have the soundtrack DLC, which is pretty much all the new songs that have been added to Medieval Dynasty, compiled for those to be able to download. And of course, we still have like the free updates, like the Planter Tree update that came out alongside of the Echoes of Nature DLC. But a couple things that we don't know about the DLCs is that we're probably gonna get more DLCs that vary in size and scope in the next couple years, maybe. Who knows? This means we might be getting some bigger DLCs. Maybe we'll get like castle structures or new maps or something, I don't know. But yeah, Szymanski, or the CEO, I don't want to botch his name, but they said they're planning to strike a balance between paid and free content, and I do think this means we'll see more DLCs in the near future, maybe even in the holiday season. Now, my thoughts on why they're starting to do paid DLCs is that, I mean, the devs have been giving us updates for almost 5 years now for free, and if there is a new game in development or being developed by RenderCube, I expect they're looking for ways to get funding. And regardless of them being paid DLCs, I don't really think the community at large is gonna mind paying for some DLCs, but I do think if we don't get necessarily good DLCs or DLCs that seem worthwhile for the players, I think it could go down south pretty quickly. But I'm willing to keep an open mind and see what they deliver, because so far they've been doing pretty well. And then we have the new game. One of the questions that was asked was whether Medieval Dynasty 2 was expected to be their next game, and they didn't say no, technically. Essentially, they said they were still in the concept phases, planning out what they would do next, and then they would start in the pre-production phases starting this year. So it is possible they're past the concept phase at this point. Some of the details that they gave was that this game is probably going to take an estimated 3 years to develop, so we're probably not going to see this for a good while. But the other thing that they said is that they want this game to be more refined than the release of Medieval Dynasty in its initial release. Now, they did talk a little bit about early access and how before it was a lot easier for these games to sell concepts rather than refined games. But a lot of that has changed, which I do agree with, especially for a company like RenderCube. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've played a lot of early access games these days, and a lot of them are slop. And now with AI coming into the gaming space, it really feels like early access has reached that state of like shitification. And while I could make a whole video about early access as a whole, that's not really what the topic is right now. But since RenderCube has made Medieval Dynasty, and over the years it has become as polished as it has, I think putting out unpolished early access slop would look really bad for RenderCube, especially if it's nowhere near the quality of Medieval Dynasty. But like I said, the RenderCube team is supposedly expanding, so the production of this game shouldn't really interfere with Medieval Dynasty. I don't think this can be guaranteed this early on, but really only time will tell. Like, a lot of you might also just think like, why not just keep updating Medieval Dynasty? And something he said is that some things are just too big to bolt right onto the original. And like, I think a great example of this one would be like rotatable fields. I feel like this has become like an inside joke amongst the Medieval Dynasty community, but there's no way to rotate fields. They always have to be within line of the compass. But I mean, on top of that, there's like, you know, if you want smarter villagers that maybe have to remember more things or have more dynamic social lives, if we want like bigger worlds with more biomes, trade routes, maybe even like regional politics. What if you could meet like the king? Maybe you could go to castles. They could completely change the map system. One other thing is that maybe they'll be able to build a better foundation for combat. I feel like combat's probably one of the more hot topics in Medieval Dynasty right now. And I don't want to go too into it, but I kind of get it. This game hasn't been focused towards combat. It's always been like, you know, the medieval peasant simulator where you build a village and you run it. But maybe with a new game, you know, they could make better combat and maybe it would feel a lot better. I still think they should improve on what they can for Medieval Dynasty 1, but I mean, these are just some ideas. On top of that, like, let's say multiplayer, if they wanted to do more than 4 players in a lobby, we could do dedicated servers. Maybe it could be almost like an MMO, like Hacks Day or Ark Survival or Conan, where you can have 30, 100 people on a single lobby. Yeah, it's not that they can't keep updating Medieval Dynasty, it's just I feel like the foundation that it's built on can't hold what they may want to do next. So give it a couple years and we will probably see something new come out of RenderCube. And I'm pretty excited about that, honestly. As much as I'm sure that me and many other people would love for this game to be Medieval Dynasty 2, there is always the chance that it's not. I do think it would make the most sense that it's either survival crafting or simulator adjacent, maybe even medieval adjacent, because they said they're using a lot of their strengths that they got from making Medieval Dynasty, but nothing is confirmed right now. Now, while I don't think that their next game needs to be Medieval Dynasty 2, I do think it needs to at least have a lot of things that draw in their previous base of Medieval Dynasty into the next game. This may not make sense at first, but I promise it will. But I recently finished playing a full playthrough of Bellwright, which is kind of very similar to Medieval Dynasty, and the developer of that game kind of had a little bit of drama go on between them and the community. There's a development team called Donkey Crew, and they've made 2 games, Last Oasis and Bellwright. Now, Last Oasis was pretty loved and popular amongst its community, but as they needed to get more money and more funding, they went and made Bellwright. And so a lot of people, especially a lot of players from Last Oasis, felt like that the development team kind of abandoned anything that they were doing with Last Oasis just to go over to Bellwright. Now, I'm not saying the same thing would happen to RenderCube, but I do hope we see some form of mod support before that time comes, because at that point you'll have modders that'll essentially keep injecting life within the game. So if anything, if they do end up going to new game, I really hope that they plan to do some sort of mod support, especially if they ever plan to slow down development on Medieval Dynasty in the next 5 years. But no, why I really think all of this matters, especially if you like Medieval Dynasty or Toplets games, is that I would, in my opinion, I think RenderCube is like the best development team that Toplets has under their umbrella of games. So anything new that they may be possibly working on, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're doing. As you guys may or may not know, I do play a lot of the Dynasty games on stream, and Medieval Dynasty is absolutely the best one out there so far. It's not even close. I mean, Sengoku's good, but Medieval Dynasty is just, it's still ahead of the game in my opinion. One thing they did also mention was that player feedback has been pretty essential to the development of Medieval Dynasty and has kind of been central to the roadmap, which I honestly have personally seen. While I'm not as active in like the official Medieval Dynasty community, I do talk to you guys all the time, whether it's through chats or comments. And I do have to say that many of the community requests, especially with top requests like quality of life, co-op, armors, etc., have for the most part been received positively. But yeah, is Medieval Dynasty confirmed? Not exactly, not by name, but there is in fact a RenderCube game possibly in pre-production right now. So to the players of Medieval Dynasty or those interested in RenderCube's new project, what are the biggest additions or changes you would like to see in Medieval Dynasty in the coming years? And what would you like to see in their upcoming game? Personally, I think a Medieval Dynasty 2 could be cool depending if they broaden their scope. But if it's not Medieval Dynasty 2, I would hope it'd be at least medieval adjacent, or at least some sort of survival crafting or simulator game. But yep, that's my thoughts. Don't forget to leave a comment, let me know what you'd like to see in Medieval Dynasty or in the new upcoming game. And until next time, thanks for watching, and take care.